we're talking about retirement income, what it is, how it works, and why it's so important. Welcome to Retiring Today. I'm Molly Nelson here with Clint Hunt-Roth and Lauren Merkel. They're both certified financial fiduciaries. Lauren is also a certified financial planner, and Clint has a PhD. Today, we're talking about retirement income. And guys, we all read a study, and it had some really interesting facts about retirement income. The ones that we highlighted are this: 62% of advisors say they've talked about retirement income, but only 27% of investors say that their advisor is talking about it. But you guys both know that 100% of people will need it. So where is the disconnect?
Well, there clearly is one. And so we start to wonder, how could that happen? We often hear from families that we're getting to know for the first time that their advisors may be talking over their head. They're not always taking time to slow down. And that creates some anxiety for those families, that they don't really know maybe what their, in this example, retirement income plan is going to look like, because they haven't really had that connection and clear communication with the financial professional that they're working with.
Yeah, there's clearly something at play here, Lauren. And it's good to mention that a lot of times when you work with families, they've already worked with a financial advisor prior, because at Merkel Retirement Planning, we specialize in retirement planning. So typically people 50 and older come in and they've been working with someone, and retirement income is often a new concept for them.
It's a new concept when we talk about it, but they know they need retirement income, and they've always received income, but it was through the employer. But now it's different in the standpoint that they have to start paying themselves from their investments, or Social Security pays them, or their pension pays them. And I think one of the disconnects also is because most advisors in the industry are working in the working phase of your life, meaning when you're 40 years old and you have a job and the job's paying you and you're saving for retirement, the strategies that you're putting into place are way different than when you're 57 and you're looking to retire in 3 years and you need to start taking income from it. So a lot of advisors focus on the investment aspect of it instead of the entire retirement plan, which isn't a bad thing, because there is definitely a need when you're 40 years old to create a contribution strategy to make sure you have enough saved for retirement. But it's just the season of your life is different when you're looking to retire, which means your plan needs to be significantly different. And that's why we only focus on writing the retirement plans that are comprehensive. And we spend a lot of time talking about the income portion of it because it's so important.
And talking is what we do on the show. You know, I've been working with you, Lauren, now for almost 10 years, and we work really hard to take some of the speak out of it, the advisor speak, because financial advisors, you guys have your own language, the terms, you have a lot of acronyms, and we work hard to talk to people in terms that they can understand. And of course, in meetings, yeah, you're going to go a little bit high level. You're going to go more in depth. But you touched on it, Clint. A lot of times, investors have a way of speaking that's hard for people that are not in the industry to understand.
Yeah, and that's really where, when we start to build that plan for families, in many cases they say, hey, this is the first time I've ever seen this. And it's not them listening to us as retirement planners say, hey, you're okay, you can retire, you've got solid income in retirement that's going to be protected. They can actually see it for themselves. And now the impact of making some of those different decisions, you know, do I take my pension lump sum or do I take it monthly? They can see the difference in different scenarios, how that plays out over a 10, 20, 30-year period of time. Social Security is another great example. A lot of different options out there. What would it be like if I waited a little bit? Okay, well, now I'm going to have to go to some other source of income for maybe a few years if I'm going to delay that after retirement. Families can see that for themselves and they say, oh, now I understand, now I get it. And that's really, to me, where the light comes on. They say, I understand what that retirement income plan is starting to look like. And that's specifically how it works in my plan for my situation.
Yeah, the visual is so important, and it's a way different experience when they do actually get to see how much income they can receive at age 62, how much income can they receive with the tax planning and adjustments for inflation at the age of 72. And when they get to see that through that written plan, it's way different than us just saying, yes, you can retire and you're going to receive $6,000 a month. Telling you that is way different than you actually seeing this. And that reminds me of a recent Charles Schwab survey study that was done that said only 33% of those looking to retire have a written plan. So if we look at the disconnect between advisors saying they talk about income plan versus those who say they actually have heard about their income plan versus those who have a written plan, I think that's a big part of it. When you get to see and hear, it's way more impactful. And then there's less room for us using acronyms or verbiage that people who are not in the industry just don't understand. So instead of saying things like distribution, we say things like you're going to receive $3,000 a month and you're going to receive $1,800 a month from Social Security, right? That kind of detail and that kind of language, I think, goes a long way to eliminating that disconnect.
And part of my favorite thing when we're getting to know families for the first time is to talk to them about what their lifestyle in retirement might look like. Because at the end of the day, that's where the income plan is important. How does it feed those lifestyle needs that you have in retirement? And it's very different if you're, going to maybe work part-time in retirement versus if you're going to travel the world. I mean, so every family is going to be different on their lifestyle and their expense needs. And that's where it all starts, is to start to have those conversations. What do you want to do in retirement? What does that look like? What do we anticipate some of your monthly expenses might be? And then we start to figure out, okay, how can, in your plan, we make sure that we can deliver that consistently to you, no matter what the market's doing. Very few people want to have those retirement trips planned, market goes down, and now they all of a sudden feel like, oh, I don't know if I can go on that trip that I booked 9 months in advance. Families want to have consistent retirement income to ensure that they're able to accomplish those retirement goals that they have.
Today, we're focusing on retirement income. We want to help you start the conversation about retirement income so you can feel more prepared for retirement. But there's more that goes into retirement. There are actually 6 essential pillars. They're on your screen right now. We call the comprehensive look at that your Retire Secure Roadmap. You can find out how to build a Retire Secure Roadmap by texting the word journey to the number that's on your screen. It's pretty easy. You could do it right now if you'd like. Pull your phone out, text journey, and then you'll get signed up for a workshop that'll show you how to build a Retire Secure Roadmap. Let's get back to retirement income, because we promised to tell people how to start the conversation maybe with the person that they're working with, or maybe help them decide, hey, is it time to work with a retirement income, or a retirement planner? So let's talk about what is retirement income on a real detailed and basic level.
Yeah, think about all the different ways that you can receive income, all the different ways that you can get paid so you can enjoy your lifestyle when your employer is no longer paying you. And it will be unique to you. It may not be the same as what your siblings had, may not be the same as what your parents had or your coworkers had. Just so take an inventory of what those different income sources could look like. Do you have access to a pension? Almost everybody has access to Social Security. Now it's trying to determine, of all the different options you have, what is going to be the optimal decision for you when it comes to Social Security. And if you save for retirement, you might have an IRA, you might have an employer-sponsored plan that you've been contributing to, and maybe your employer was contributing to. You might have some non-retirement accounts like brokerage accounts with just some stocks or mutual funds or exchange traded funds. All of those different sources can provide income in retirement. And now it's about, how do you receive the income? How much can you receive and still have confidence of not running out of income down the road from those different sources? And that is where the complexity comes into play.
And what it is a detailed plan that's written out, and it's a monthly plan, but it also has to account for a couple of things. I'm thinking inflation and retirement taxes.
Yeah, and we want to make sure that that is all included. So we know what we're spending today to live a certain lifestyle. We anticipate that's going to continue to go up over time with inflation, and we want to make sure that we're prepared for that. And that's one thing that I find when families haven't had that long-term comprehensive plan where they can see what that looks like over time. They know inflation is concerning. They know they need to be accounting for it. And if the conversation they've had with a financial professional haven't had that as part of the conversation, then they ultimately start to have some of that, well, I don't know that we're on the same page here, or I'm not sure that the lines of communication are actually delivering me confidence in my retirement income plan the way that it needs to be. And so we want to account for that. How does that change over time? And families are often surprised about how big of an impact that can have. Then another thing, it kind of go back to that conversation sometimes families have is, I don't know if I've saved enough. Well, part of that is make sure we've saved in the right buckets and we have an understanding what the tax implications can be over time. Any of those dollars that are saved in those pre-tax accounts are subject to tax rate hike increases. And that can ultimately reduce how much you can actually take home and be able to spend. That's where you need to have that proactive retirement tax plan.
So retirement income, what it is, we've covered that, and how it works. And this really in the study is outlined as well, because here's the challenge. 96% of advisors say in this Alliance study that they've discussed with clients when they should take withdrawals from the certain accounts. But only 66 of the clients believe that that is going on. Again, so a disconnect between what advisors think they're telling clients and what clients are hearing or understanding.
And based on some of the feedback that we've received when we've talked to people specifically about their income plan, and we ask them, have you had this conversation with your existing advisor? And they say no. It could be just their advisor said, well, when you go to retire, we're just going to turn money out from here. and it could have left it at that. When you retire, we're just going to take your Social Security, and left it at that. So in the advisor's mind, they might be thinking, yeah, we talked about it, right? You're going to retire, you're going to get income. But in the individuals, in the retiree's mind, they want more detail. They want more detail. How are we going to adjust for inflation down the road? How do we account for taxation? Because all of that goes into the income plan, because the less you pay in taxes, the more you get to spend on your retirement lifestyle. The more that you can account for inflation, the more you get to spend on your retirement lifestyle. So retirees might be thinking through some of these things without really knowing how to account for them. And their advisor might be just thinking, you're going to retire. We're just going to turn on these different buckets and kind of leave it at that. So not necessarily, it just might be more of an incomplete conversation than anything else.
We'll continue talking about why retirement income is so important and how it works. But first, we want to answer some questions we received recently during an online Journey to Retirement workshop. Welcome back to Retiring Today. It's time to answer a question we received recently during our online Journey to Retirement workshop. Here is the question we got from Jeff. Jeff wants to know, how long does one need to wait to withdraw after depositing into a Roth? Clint, what would you tell Jeff?
Yeah, I think Jeff's probably worried about the 5-year rule that gets talked about a lot and has a lot of different nuances to it. On the surface, if you make a contribution to a Roth IRA, you need to wait 5 years before you can get those earnings that you receive out of that. You can always get that initial amount that you've invested back without any sort of penalties, but you need to start to worry about the earnings and make sure that that Roth has been started for at least 5 years. Before you're able to take out some of the earnings that have happened within that Roth IRA account. So even if you have just a little bit of money and you want to start that Roth IRA, it can be important and valuable to go ahead and get that 5-year clock started.
Yeah, and that's a really important point around that, is it's when your Roth IRA was started. So if you start your Roth IRA in 2010, and you contribute again last year, you don't have to wait another 5 years for that last contribution. It's just from day one that you started that Roth IRA.
Okay, and I suspect that Jeff asked this question during the online Journey to Retirement workshop when John and Sue do just this. They use a Roth conversion. Let's talk about John and Sue, why they're doing a Roth conversion, and why they're the stars of our Journey to Retirement workshop.
Yeah, a lot of families will save in those tax-deferred accounts, believing that they're going to have the ability to take distributions out in retirement, that retirement income, and they'll be taxed at a lower rate than during their working years. What families often don't realize is if they save too well, then they often have some implications of that later on in retirement, such as required minimum distributions. Now they have forced distributions that come out, could potentially kick them up into the next tax bracket. So a Roth conversion can help to alleviate some of that tax burden around your retirement assets. And really all it is taking a portion of your pre-tax dollars, voluntarily paying the tax bill in a given year, and then converting it over into that Roth IRA where it's able to grow tax-free forever.
And what's neat about the Journey to Retirement workshop is John and Sue do this, and you did a great job of explaining it, but what's even better and what people see when they sign up is how much more money it puts into the retirement income.
And specifically with John and Sue, what they realized as they incorporated their tax plan, which included a Roth conversion, is they were able to save over $100,000 off of their retirement tax bill. And they were able to do this because they realized that they had saved all of this money in pre-tax accounts, and at some point down the road, they were going to pay taxes on it. So in their evaluation, they were able to determine by doing Roth conversions, even prior to retirement, they were able to pay a less amount of tax on that Roth conversion than they would have later down the road, like you mentioned at RMD time. So, and that's an important part of anybody's evaluation. You will pay tax on that money. So do you pay less tax now or less tax later? And that's why the answer, or everybody's tax plan, is a little bit different because everybody's situation is different.
Did you hear that? $100,000. What would you do with an extra $100,000 in retirement? You could start dreaming. Find out how John and Sue do it by texting Journey to the number on your screen. Pretty simple, right? All you have to do is text Journey to the number that's on your screen. Clint, who should sign up for the Journey to Retirement workshop?
Yeah, if you're sitting at home and you're starting to have some of these questions, if you're 57 or older, you're starting to think more and more about retirement, now's a great time to start thinking about what questions you should be asking, what it's like to have that comprehensive retirement plan. And as you walk through and see how John and Sue go about retirement, you'll often have a lot of good takeaways that then you can start to think of, oh, how does this apply to me? And what's it like to have that comprehensive planning approach?
One of the most difficult parts about about retirement planning is, what is a retirement plan? Where do you start? Because there's just so much that goes into it, and this is not something you've ever had to deal with before. One of the aspects about the online journey is you get to see all the pillars that go into a comprehensive written retirement plan, so you can see what's missing in your plan. What do you need to add to your plan, or what is already good about what your plan is, and you can just kind of fill in those holes and then feel really good about it. So what is in a retirement plan? All of that is built into the online journey.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because it's a chance for us to show the Retire Secure Roadmap. It's beautiful. It outlines, it's a visual representation of the plans that you help families build. So you're looking at it right now, and you can see there's 6 stops. There's income, investment, taxes, healthcare, legacy, and that first stop, it was lifestyle. It was lifestyle. You mentioned it. That's where you help people plan what they want to do in retirement. And that Retire Secure Roadmap is exactly what you help John and Sue build, and then they get to enjoy their retirement.
And one thing that families often don't realize is just how intertwined all of those different stops along the way are. The decisions you make for tax planning can impact income, obviously impact investments, and can even have an impact on your healthcare. Hard to believe that all of those different areas, which we often maybe think of separately, all need to be on the same page to ensure that you're optimizing your retirement.
It's as easy as a text. You can text Journey to the number on your screen. Then we'll reach out to you, let you know when our next workshops are. You can get signed up and then get comfortable, because you'll spend about an hour and 45 minutes going on the journey with John and Sue and seeing all the decisions they make, so that you can put yourself in a better position for retirement. We're going to talk about retirement income, more specifically some of the risks to your retirement income, next. Welcome back to Retiring Today. I'm Molly Nelson here with Clint Huntrods and Lauren Merkel, and we're talking about retirement income because it's just not talked about enough. A recent study showed that about 27% of investors said that their financial professional was talking about it, but Lauren, we know 100% of people will need retirement income. So we're starting the conversation. You've been starting the conversation with people now for more than 20 years.
Yeah, in fact, it's most pre-retirees' number one concern. How are they going to get paid, and what does that actually look like when their employer no longer pays them? And there's a lot of risks that go into upsetting that retirement income plan, if in fact you even have a plan, because most people that we meet with for the first time, and most people who we do meet with for the first time, are currently working with an advisor. But most people don't have that retirement income plan set up, and that's where we need to start. We need to make sure that you have that retirement income set up. And it's really appealing for a lot of people to say, I'm not going to retire for 5 years. I don't need to have that plan for at least another 4 years. And that could not be further from the truth, because the sooner you get started, the more you can address some of these overall bigger risks. And it's all about making sure you add certainty to your retirement income, so you have confidence you're going to get paid the amount you need to get paid when you want to get paid, and you can adjust for all the risks that do come down the pipeline in retirement.
And you mentioned this importance of being proactive on this, having that plan, knowing you're confident that you can retire and what that would look like. We recently had a family we started working with about a year ago. And when we first started, in the wife of the couple, her husband said she'll never retire, she'll never do it. Her kid said she'll never retire, she'll never do it. Well, she thought she was going to retire probably 3 years from now, and she just got the news that she was laid off. Oh. And having that plan has helped her to be able to see that that wasn't the worst thing in the world, because she knew she's confident. She knows her plan is solid. She knows where they're going to go for income and how that looks after that paycheck goes away. So she said, this is actually great. I got 6 more months of severance and then I'm retiring. And everybody thought she'd never do it. Well, things changed in her job. And that's something that we find is about 50% of families aren't going to retire on the date that they think that they will. Some families say that I'm never going to retire. In this case, because she had the plan, she was able to be confident that that was a positive thing rather than losing a job and feeling really terrible about it.
And what a way to retire, to go out with a severance and retire, and she already had that plan in place. What a perfect combination to make that such an easier transition for her than otherwise getting that news. The outside forces made her retire, but then she had to kind of pick up the pieces and build a plan. It's a way different experience.
Yeah, and is that because when you originally wrote the plan with her, clearly you didn't have that retirement date set. You had something in the future. But are you talking to people along the way about, but if you wanted to retire at 62 instead of 64, so that they know that if there's an adjustment that's made by them or their employer, they're going to be okay?
Yeah, one of my favorite things as we build the plan out is it's customizable to you. We'll show you whatever you want to see. So sometimes we will build a scenario. What if you retire at 62? What if you retire at 64? What if you work all the way until 66? And then families can see. And instead of saying, I think I should retire here, or I think I'm okay here, now they know. Here's what it would look like if I retired at this time. And for her, we built a scenario that was kind of an earlier retirement, but she full well knew she wasn't planning on retiring that soon. But then that's the scenario that she already had printed off in her plan at home that she could flip through and say, hey, losing my job right now is not the worst thing. It's just going to actually speed up my retirement date. And the plan has helping to guide them to see what that path forward looks like.
Let's quickly go through some of the risks to retirement. We get into this in more detail in the Journey to Retirement workshop, and then also in visits. You really talk to people about this, but just things for people to be thinking about. The market can be a risk to your retirement income.
It can be a big risk, especially if we don't adjust the portfolio or the investment strategies to account for the changes in your life. And the big change to your life when you retire is you need to start taking money out of that portfolio. So your investment portfolio on the doorsteps of retirement or in retirement need to change. The strategies, the amount of risk that you're taking. Otherwise, if you're investing the same way that you've always invested, remember that big last downturn in the market, how painful that was for you. Imagine being dependent upon that portfolio when it's down 30 to 40% and it's supposed to sustain you for the rest of your life. It's a complete different game. So you have to adjust your investment strategies to make sure it can account for your new demands out of that portfolio.
Another risk to retirement income, taxes.
Yeah, the question is, you're going to pay taxes. The question is, do you pay it on your terms? Do you pay it on the IRS's terms? And just the question is, do you have a proactive tax plan? Have you identified the ways that you will pay tax over time? Because either you're going to do it in your lifetime, or as you pass it on to your beneficiaries, they're going to have a big tax bill. Most families don't want to burden them with it. And the nice thing is that a lot of the decisions you can make to be more efficient with your tax plan also benefit your legacy as well.
Another risk, those retirement rules. You know, Lauren, you've been doing this for over 20 years. They change all the time.
Yeah, and you don't get to control that. Nobody really gets to control that except for the people in control, our legislators. And they seem to like to create job security for us.
Yeah,
because
right?
all those changes, we have to stay on top of those because we have to understand how they apply to your retirement plan, how to interpret them, what are the consequences or implications to everybody's plan, and then make those adjustments. So we have to keep an eye on those rules and make changes to the plan as necessary.
We talk about these retirement rules and so much more during our online Journey to Retirement workshop. There's the phone number. You could get your phone out right now. Text Journey to the number on your screen, and we'll get you signed up for the Journey to Retirement workshop. Who should sign up?
Yeah, if you're 57 or older, if you're starting to be on the doorsteps of retirement, and we start to talk about the rules of the game that you need to be abiding by, what a proactive tax plan looks like, how to get consistent income in retirement, if you have questions about that, you'd be a perfect person to sign up. And then get cozy and relax and enjoy some of that content as we walk through John and Sue's retirement and how they achieve their goals.
Yeah, it's a complimentary workshop, so all you really have to do is send the text and we'll get signed up for a time and a date that works for you, and you'll start your journey to retirement. This is Retiring Today, and we thank you for watching.